Carmela.
How's everyone? Hi.
It's about 29 of us here. So let the camera will show you who's here. Can you see everyone?
Wow, how nice. Yes, the venue is very nice. Wood everywhere. Beautiful.
So this is my sister from another father and mother in the Philippines. And we met, what year was it, Carmela? Do you remember when we met?
2011, maybe? In the open space in Manila with open space conference in Manila.
Yeah, that's
No?
right. Yeah. And we also met at the same time Bradley, who some of you have met, who did the Theory U training. And we also met Victor, who's going to join us soon. So seeing as you're already here,
Yeah.
seeing as you're here, Carmela, you want to introduce yourself, talk a little bit about who you are, what you do, where you come from, what you care about, so they can get to know
Okay.
you. So they can get to know you.
Okay, Cindy. So I'm Carmela, and my friends call me Carms, but that's not my name at home. But never mind. My family followed my friends after a while. I was born here in Cebu City. For some of you who might have been to the Philippines or even to Cebu. So I was born here, although my parents don't come from this city. They come from another province in the Philippines. And I studied psychology, but then during college and even during high school, I was already involved in social issues. So I was already doing some facilitation work from college and partly in high school. So, and then I did a lot of in the student activism days. So I got so involved in student organizations, but we'll talk about that later when Victor is here, like how, why, and how we got into facilitation. But now I'm actually a consultant, but I have been a consultant for many years already. I started quite young. I only have maybe 5.5 years of employed work. I started doing consultancy very early. I mean, even when I was working, I already did some consultancy on the side. So my work is really not-for-profit organizations or development organizations, and usually foreign-funded projects. So I do a lot of facilitation, actually. Maybe 80% of my work is facilitation of my consultancies. And then training, and sometimes I do, bottom-up feedback for giving feedback to higher management from the staff to the supervisor, or training once in a while, organizational assessment for not-for-profit organizations, and very few monitoring and evaluation engagements. So my work brings me to places because of what I do. But now in the pandemic, we are all home based and trying to love everything about being a work from home consultant. Everyone is work from home, mostly here in the Philippines anyway, those who could. And yeah, that's where I am right now. I'm contributing to less to the carbon footprint, all of us, as most of us are working from home. Uh, yeah, I don't know what else you want to know.
Tell us about a couple of projects that you're working on. So, to give us a flavor of the kinds of issues
Okay.
that you're working with.
That's true. So, because as a facilitator, they don't need topic experts. They need process experts. So I am invited to all sorts of projects. So for example, I have facilitated project planning for private sector promotion or supporting small and small and medium enterprise development. Or I have also facilitated in workshops dealing with child labor, or for example, climate change. So last year, for example, I facilitated the networking workshop in the Philippines of the project partners or those who are funded by the International Climate Initiative. So all the big ones who are funded by the International Climate Initiative were there, who have projects in the Philippines, like, for example, our WWF or Oasis Loss, uh, Oasis LM, loss modeling, and then the others, no, Conservation International, etc., GIZ. So also in the environment, for example, I facilitated the crafting of the National Solid Waste Management Strategic Plan of the Philippines. Or the other year in 2018, actually, I facilitated the crafting of the national strategy to save the pangolin in the Philippines. So last month, it took a while. It took them two years to produce the final paper for the strategy. But I was very happy to be part of that and to have been able to hold a pangolin, because at the end of the last day of the National Strategic Planning Workshop, the pangolin appeared somewhere and was turned over to the authorities. So we went there to the release site of the pangolin. So those are the perks of my work. I've also been part of projects involving safe water, sanitation, and hygiene, and wash in schools, for example. Or we did a do no harm study for the reconstruction, owner-driven reconstruction of housing projects after Typhoon Haiyan. So I was hired by Caritas Swiss International. So that was a different topic again, disaster relief and rehabilitation. No? I have been doing consultancies for many years with the Office of the Philippine Presidential Assistant for the peace process. So we do a lot of peace building and conflict transformation. Also for a project of the German International Cooperation on conflict sensitive resources and asset management program. I did a number of consultancies for them, which was a mix of project planning, workshops, learning. I do a lot of learning exchange types of workshops, no, like people want to reflect on what they have learned from their projects, and then something related to youth or to it's the topic is so wide, the range, because that's what we are. Facilitators are more for the process and not on the content. But it doesn't mean I don't have to read the paper about the project. So for example, there was a project here on translocation of the Philippine cockatoo, which were saved during the El Nino phenomenon in 2010. They were saved by Catala Foundation because there was an El Nino and the babies were dying. The mother and father died already and the babies were found. So they saved the endemic cockatoos, Philippine cockatoo, only found in certain places in the Philippines. And then they had to, when the chicks were already big, they had to be translocated to the wild. So I don't know anything about translocation. So I have to read this thick of documents to understand what it is about, to have a good grasp of the topic before I facilitate. It was an end of project evaluation. So we had to draw also responses on evaluation questions, on lessons learned, on next steps, and all these things. So okay, so there's content and process. And if I have a paper, if this is the box, you can imagine, maybe Cindy can draw a rectangle. on your board.
Draw a rectangle on the board. Somebody.
Yes, and then in the middle, draw a line. So you have a rectangle there already, and in the middle, so it is split into two halves already, right?
Hello.
Hi, Victor.
Hi, Victor.
Sorry, I was doing something else, and all of a sudden I realized, oh, it's 3 o'clock.
It's okay. I
Hi,
was
Victor.
just yeah.
Hi.
So
Do you want
let's
introduce
pause.
first, Victor? Yeah.
Let's pause that topic, Carms, and then we'll get back to it later. Yeah. Victor,
Yes.
hi. You wanna
Hi.
introduce yourself? Why are you here on the planet? Which incarnation are you? All these kinds of things.
Hi, I'm Victor. I'm from Yogyakarta in Indonesia. I'm in the village close by a very close national park of Mount Merapi, one of the most active volcano in Indonesia or even in the world. I'm a facilitator full-time, professional work area is in the business sector. But Carmela and Cynthia always brought me to the social development area and enjoy the adventure that we are dealing when dealing with social development. Anyway, I think what I'm doing now is really go back to the village, really work in a slow living life, developing peripheral farmers around Merapi to become more sustainable farming using organic and natural resources. And because of that, every time I I rarely go to the market now, maybe only once a month. The rest is unity. So I'm excited to be here. I'm so glad seeing Carmela and Cynthia. That's it. Reincarnation, we'll talk separately.
I'm Salma Hayek, Aka, aka.
Victor, did you see the room? Can we show the room so Victor can see who's here? There's almost 30 of us here gathered. Can you see them?
I only see. Okay. Hi.
You may have met some of them during.
Wow, look at that.
Team. Can you sit
down?
down?
Okay.
Are you going to sit down, Victor?
Yeah.
So, thank you so much for agreeing to do this with us. And we're going to start off with the question to each of you. Why facilitation? Why have you decided that your life's work is in facilitation? Why is that important for the world, for yourself? Please share.
Carmela? Or Carmela has already shared?
No.
Belum lagi.
It's a bit strange. I'm now trying to recall how everything started, but when I introduced myself earlier, I was mentioning that I was very involved already in social issues back in high school and more so in college. So when I'm asked why facilitation, I really like the word of Dr. Maria Montessori. She has this word unfoldment, the unfoldment. She doesn't use the word unfolding, but the unfoldment, meaning my feeling is that my pathway was prepared for me because I don't know, I was always involved in social issues from high school, but mostly in college. And then by being a student activist, I got into facilitation work because we have to conduct reflection sessions or socio-political orientation, active nonviolence workshops. So by being involved as a student, I started to do facilitation, but I did not think of it as a job. Then I became quite known as one of those student activists who can conduct these things. So we were already invited in college to facilitate or to conduct these workshop on awareness or social awareness and active nonviolence, for example. So that started it. And then when I worked, I got a job on training, which is very related to facilitation anyway. You need facilitation skills to be a trainer. So I think it was not a conscious effort in the beginning. Even now, I don't consider it a very conscious effort. It's like as the word unfoldment, I really like the word. But the pathway unfolds self-improvement. What I did in my life, and then the skills are somehow developed along the way. You learn new things every time you engage with other people in this work of facilitation. And how do I contribute to the world? I think it contributes so much to the world because you are there in the you are. I like also the word of some of the Germans. They use the word midwife to refer to a facilitator. We are like midwives, and we are not the one giving birth to the baby, which are the ideas, the concepts or the solutions to problems, innovation. We are not the ones giving birth, but we facilitate people giving birth to ideas, to innovative solutions, no? So we are like the midwives. So I think being a facilitator has a very big role in the world to allow people to come together and then to be able to craft solutions, to reflect, to to solve problems, to develop plans and all these things. And that's a very important role because we are not so involved in the content. That was the rectangle that I wanted to be drawn later, but maybe later we can a while ago, so maybe later we can discuss that. But yeah, I find my process really like gradual, but events came that brought me there. Uh, do you want to ask more questions? Maybe Victor now.
Yeah.
Thanks, Carl.
I
Why
started my
facilitation?
I started my yeah, I started my journey as a researcher. Then I become a salesperson, and then I become an animator, and then I became a trainer, and then become a director in one of the company and general manager in a hotel, blah blah blah. But then one time when I was a trainer for leadership training program, one of the most recognized training program, we trained a group of what you call a disaster management organizations. And one of the director came to me and said, Vic, you know what you did was a great training. In my business card, the title was facilitator, senior facilitator. Whew, And then this director came to me and pat my back and said, Vic, you're training. You're a great trainer, but you're not a facilitator. And that really, hit me hard in my heart and say, gee, so what I'm doing now, So I start search and then finding out that facilitation indeed is different than training. And indeed, it has huge dimension of change and ability to let everybody in the room to be involved in the change itself. And when you're talking about social development, when you're talking about community, you're talking about the stakeholder, the main stakeholder, do the change, not somebody impose the change. But through the process, they realize this is something they need to do. And then they make the change. And the facilitator's role is really helping that process. Now, that concept has been developed now in modern management, where facilitation or facilitative leadership or leaders with facilitation skills are more needed, more than ever so, compared to authoritarian or team-based leadership or corporation. Now it's more on the facilitative side, because then the leaders play, like Carm said, become a midwife to really allow everybody in the organizations from top to bottom to make decisions for their own life. So when you ask the questions, why is facilitation important? To me, is because we allow people to make a decision for their own. We allow the community make a decision of their own. And we are, as facilitators, helping them to really see the whole big picture, really see the bigger picture, to understand what is, if I do something in this part, what might be the impact with the larger concept. And by allowing everybody to see that, facilitation allow everybody in the room to learn, to change, and at the end, to do the transformation. So when you ask me, is it important now, facilitation? Yes, it is. Especially now, after 2020, where the whole world is changing, facilitation indeed is very important, because people are suffering. A lot of communities are not in a very good shape. Business are changing tremendously. War is at the very early stage and ready. It's only one crazy guy punched the point, and then that's it. And that's where we facilitators really work, talking about inclusivity, talking about peace, talking about tolerance, talking about love, talking about caring for the world, talking about sustainability. That's where we are as facilitators. Thank you, Sin.
If I may add, Sin,
Please do.
um, I would like to caution everybody, though, who are listening to us, that being facilitative or facilitating these processes is not a magic pill, because I also know that it can be very frustrating. I mean, I have facilitated in so many planning workshops which involve government agencies in foreign funded development projects. And we are saying, we already discussed this last year and the other year and 3 years ago and 4 years ago. And the problem is still the same. Nothing has been done. So not because, just because we had a very nice workshop, a very nice planning session, that things will be transformed. So that's why I want to already disabuse your mind that while we say it's a very important task, but it's not a magic pill. It's just one of the many things that could help towards the change that we want to see. But it's not enough. There are other things that are needed. For example, if you want to bring about change in more trees planted and less cutting of the trees, you can have a very nice project planning workshop about that. But there are other things that needs to happen after a workshop. The follow through is very important, for example. So it can be a very frustrating job as well. I have to warn you. Because some problems are very sticky, and you cannot easily see the changes that the participants would want to see. And yeah, maybe Cynth, you want to carry on? I could go on and on that, but I just want to share the frustration also as part of the problem.
Carm, I think it's just a learning process, a learning stage. Some people, it needs months to change. Some people needs years to change. Some people are not changing because they are not supposed to change. And that's a learning process. Once we understand the role of everybody in the room and what they can do towards the change, that's important to play on. I think it's only a stage of change that people learn and go through. That's why I never feel frustrated. I'm so always happy being a facilitator.
We
But that's
do
me.
have, yeah, we do have to acknowledge when we have negative feelings also as facilitators. It's part of our self-compassion. No, we need to be compassionate with ourselves. So if we feel frustrated that we have discussed this 100 times, it's part of it. And we just need to, as Victor said, because it's a learning process, maybe the learning is so slow,
Yeah.
which is part of our human nature.
Yeah.
So we just keep moving on. And from one project to the next, from one initiative to the next, maybe some little things have changed, and maybe those are already big steps.
Yeah. Or
Because everything starts somewhere, no?
or yeah,
Change should.
or change different approach.
So yeah,
That's true.
on the topic of approaches, we were talking before you came on, Victor, about process experts.
Mm.
How do you, as process experts, keep your knives sharp? Like, what are your knives? What are your tools? Yeah, yes, like that one. How did I know you were holding a knife? Um, um, what does it mean to be a process expert?
Earlier, I was asking the staff of one of the participants there to draw a rectangle and draw a straight line to have two halves. And
Horizontal, horizontal
on the top,
rectangle or vertical?
horizontal, yes, horizontal rectangle, and then make it two halves. And then you can shade the upper portion. So shade the upper portion. Just do put some markings like that. Yes. So I usually use this graphic in my facilitation skills training, so that if the top part is the content, the bottom part is the process. And I always tell my participants that process should support content and not the other way around. So that's why the content includes the objectives. If it's a learning exchange, no? What are the objectives? What are the topics, the core messages, the core questions? That's part of the content. So the rectangle should not be reversed. The process, oh, my favorite method is open space. So you will use open space for everything, regardless of the topic. So that's reversing the rectangle, right? Meaning your content supports now the method or that you want to use. So it should be the other way around. Content is on top, and below that is the process. Processes should support content. And there are so many ways to be able to achieve an objective in a certain facilitated group event. You just have to design that. So the designing process, when I work, I usually prepare a process design. I don't prepare a program. The program or the agenda, which has 8 to 9, 9 to 10, 10 to 12, that's the program or the agenda. And I always tell my client, I want to prepare a proper process design, because the process design actually details the very detailed process steps in each of the sessions and how you build up from one session to the next. It also defines the objectives or the expected results and output in each of the sessions, the key messages or the core messages, the core questions are detailed there, what resources are needed, human, material, technical support, etc. So it's the process design that actually will look at the nitty-gritty of how the objectives will be achieved. So that's it's not the program. Sometimes clients have a very narrow view of facilitation. They will just tell you, here's the program, the agenda, facilitate. But then it's not clear, no, how the sessions connect to each other, what are the core messages, what's the expected output, and all these things. I'll stop there, and Victor, please.
Actually, I'm going to talk on top of what Carl was saying. Besides the objective, the content, uh, facilitative leaders, facilitators, you need 5 Sundays to be ready to be able to facilitate or manage process. I always call our staff not process experts. We are process manager, but also process changer, because a lot of time during session I change the agenda due to the condition of the clients, the condition of the participants, and we change because we know there are things that are used. But one of the things that I do in my training for facilitators is I share with them the 5 skills that is very important. The first skill is observation. You need to really observe, and it's not only your eyes observation, it's your body observation. Cynthia know very well how my body becomes my radar to know what is happening when she was ill next to me when we sit together. And that's something that I developed throughout the years of being facilitators, that our body become the instrument of our observation. So it's not only ears or eyes, but also the whole body. The second thing is to really able to ask powerful question. We not like coach who you have so many hours and train for questions. Facilitator maybe only ask 1 or 2 questions, but those very powerful, that allows everybody in the room to really think about issues that they have in mind. The third skill is to have an ability to capture keywords. Just capture what they say in the keywords, and then the fifth, map them together. So you ask the questions, capture the keywords, map this answer. Since facilitation comes from the word facile or facilis, means easy or simple. So at the end of the day, it is easy for everyone in the room to make decisions or to learn in the context of learning. So map allows people to be easy, because our is always on a visual mode. Yeah, our way of learning are actually our brain is working through visual brain. But then you develop different type of learning: auditory, visual, kinesthetics, olfactory, whatever. But that allows you, to be in sequence. Now, when you have that for the fifth skill is to think structure. I know thinking is not a skill, but you can train your thinking skill to be structured. Yeah? Train yourself to think in a structured way. Once you're very structured, your map will be structured, your questioning will be structured, the way you observe is also structured, the way you manage your process is always structured. So 5 skills. The night.
Sin?
Go for it, Carms.
Yeah, may I add
Yes,
also?
please.
Yeah. So as Victor was speaking, it reminded me of context. Part of being process experts is to understand the context. So you don't just enter a facilitation event without understanding what has been happening in the past. So for example, if Cynthia will invite me to facilitate a project planning workshop, one of the things I have to ask, what happened to this project last year or the previous year or since it started, no? And then part of the context is not just understanding what happened to the project in LEAP, for example, but also in the community or with the stakeholders. So understanding the context is key also if you are a process expert. The other things that have to be looked into as a process expert is we have to ensure that there is a safe psychological environment for the participants. So what does safe psychological environment mean? It means basically free from intimidation, fear, and hostility, and that participants feel that they could trust, no, and freely express themselves. And it's also important as process experts that the physical environment is conducive to the tasks that are at hand. So it's not just, that's why I emphasize, it's not just the agenda, 8 to 9, 9 to 10. That's not just it. You have to look at whether the physical environment, the light, heat, spacing, seating arrangement, tables, the breaks, the food, the energy level, etc., that there's a conducive physical environment for the event. Another important thing that has to be looked into are right resources for the task. So the best set of people in terms of expertise, perspectives, time, stakes for the desired outcome. Do you need to invite somebody so that this person can be temporarily part of the group so that he can provide the right input? So right resources for the task. Another thing as process expert that we need to look into is to utilize the group's resources with balanced participation. What do I mean by balanced participation? It doesn't mean that Cynthia is the boss. You give her 50% airtime and the others only 1% airtime because they are just the staff. So balanced participation in terms of our community stakeholders, business stakeholders, the type of organizations, government, the private sector, public sector, or civil society, are they given chance to participate equally? Or in terms of, for example, roles, no? So the janitor in the organization has also something to say maybe. Why is he not given airtime? So balanced participation, utilizing the group's resources with balanced participation is very important. The president of a university that is not an expert on the cleaning, the janitorial things. So the janitor should also speak. And then the other thing that process experts should look at are committed decisions based on valid, relevant data and free choice. So as much as possible, which is ideal, doesn't happen all the time, there should be data, information that's available that can help the group, whatever is the task, whatever is the objective, and that the decision making allows the members to make free choices without fear of reprisals or intimidation or threats or retribution. And of course, finally, you want quality outcomes from the processes. So there has to be some standard or indicators of success. Those are just some of the things that as process experts, like foundational principles that we also have to weave them into the process design and make sure that in the actual conduct of the event, there is safe psychological environment, conducive physical environment, right resources for the task, using the group's resources through balanced participation, committed decision based on valid, relevant data, and free choice. And then, so those things we strive to fulfill. It works sometimes not, but at least we have that at the back of our mind when preparing the design and also implementing, executing it.
Victor, you seem to work more with private sector, and it's
Yeah.
from what I understand with CARMS, you work a lot with sort of multilateral donor donor institutions, civil society. I mean, they both have different models, if you like, of running their operations, and they both
Yeah.
they're motivated by different things. How does that impact your work in facilitation?
Maybe Carmen, you should answer first because it's closer to your work in Sabah. Carm, because you're talking about multilateral and
Okay. In my workshops, usually, if it depends on the type of project, usually there are multiple stakeholders. So it's not always from the community or just government people. So it really depends on the event. So sometimes there's private sector participation. It depends. So if the topic is, for example, I work a lot in Asia in the past years on Asia Pacific Metrology Program. So that's the national metrology institutes of the different countries. So that's mostly government, or they are independent quasi-governmental bodies. So the national metrology directors or presidents are there, no, in the Asia Pacific event. So they have, sometimes they carry the hat. It depends, no, how it is run, the ethos, the structure of the organization. So sometimes they carry the hat of a very strict governmental hierarchy, or the participants might be more flexible in the way they look at things, and they have more leeway to make decisions and all these things. So when the project I'm hired to facilitate for is representatives there don't have the power to decide usually. So what happens is they will say, this is what we say in the planning, but we have to consult our boss. And then this has to go up to the secretary or the minister. So that's normal. It's part of the whole setup that you can't invite all the ministers to all the facilitated events, right? So representatives or the technical person is there, or the director left, and among directors you have director 1, director 2, director 3. So there's a hierarchy. So this, not all of them can immediately make decisions, and we just have to live with it, because as I said earlier, the follow through is very important also. So for government agency, that's the challenge. The other challenge for government agencies, because most of these foreign funded projects are bilateral or multilateral involving government agencies, right? And some have civil society also. So the other challenge is when the representative so that's our joke in the Philippines. Who was the original representative here in this round table giving the pangolin? Oh, it was Cindy, but now it's Victor. But actually, the one who is attending now is Carmela. What happened? The representative of the original representative was sitting in the meeting and does not even know the context or the history, cannot provide the information. Jesus, Lord. That's very normal. That's a very normal occurrence in so many workshops. And even if you will say, we have to make sure that the actual representative who knows something about this topic attends. Well, the secretary, the minister, or the undersecretary, the assistant secretary appointed Victor, who doesn't know anything about this, because he wants to give Victor a chance to travel. All of that sometimes on the side. You know that I said earlier, we need the right resources for the task, but sometimes you don't have the right person on the task because the minister appointed somebody to give him a chance to travel to Singapore. So there can be this dynamics that we have to navigate around when it comes sometimes to government agencies. That's just how it is. Maybe it depends which country you're working with, but in the Philippines, that does happen. Maybe I will stop here. There's so many things. Well, with civil society, you get more what you want because
Mm.
usually the personnel, the staffing of civil society is small organizations. They don't have so many people so they can appoint in a huge bureaucracy, right? So usually you get the person who is in charge. And since the communication channel or line is the number of persons they have to talk to are few, there's no huge hierarchy without many levels, then if they will say, I need to talk to the executive director, well, that's just one layer maybe or two layers above that person. So with civil society, you can get what you want, maybe not always the right input, but at least the person who sits there knows something about what's happening, and they could easily communicate with their bosses. They can it's just a text message away if the executive director cannot attend. But you cannot do that for a minister. The Minister of Environment, you can, unless you are the alter ego or the undersecretary, maybe you can send a WhatsApp message to the minister. In the civil society, you can do that, right? You know that. So it's much easier sometimes to get to the details, nitty-gritty of things with civil society. And then with foreign funded development projects, of course, they also have a hierarchy. But since, for example, I work a lot with the German International Cooperation. So since they're also not a huge bureaucracy, usually in a project, you have how many staff, and then you have a senior advisor, and then you already have the German program manager. So it's also not that difficult to ask for that decision, if there's a decision that has to be made. I think for me, in my years of experience, the most critical one is with government agency. You can have all sorts of, oh my God, they sent the person who is, his role is for another topic, and it's a topic on disaster, but he's doing some other things in his office. So zero knowledge on this topic. That really happens a lot. It's not easy. Maybe Victor, for the private sector.
Yeah, private sector is easier compared to government. The bureaucracy is linear. Well, one of the indicator for business sector is profitability. And when talking about profitability, you're talking about time, and we're talking about efficiency. When you're talking about clean, clear direction and decisions. Because of that mindset, the meeting are the one who can make decisions. And that's easy for facilitators to go and navigate the process, because then everybody says, all right, this is what we need to do. This is the objectives. How then the other things that I like about business sector is they want to do it fast. They want to see results. They want to see, if we do things like this, what will be the impact to us? So who should do it? Who should be the what you call the person in charge, the person responsible for that particular, and all those things. So it's very easy, very straightforward decisions. The other thing, one of the things that makes it different, because I do both for government as well as multilateral organizations and whatnot, is for facilitators to use the language. The terms used in business will be very different from the public sector as well as social development sector. And this is where problems might arise, because sometimes the facilitator do not understand the term, do not understand the impact of what the term used, and then people can be very confused. Sometimes people or the facilitators coming from the social development start to facilitate business sector and start using the terms that is used in social development, and private sector is like, what are we talking about here? Yeah. So I think once you know how to use the term and the meaning of the terms that you're using, then it is easier to navigate the process. I facilitate several times the combination between government, so public-private as well as social development meeting. It's very interesting to really give a time and space for everybody to understand each other, understand the process, understand the way decisions made, and also to overcome the frustration from all sides. The private sectors are frustrated because of the slowness of social development of the public sector and the greediness of the social development, because a lot of time the social development is asking only for money. On the other side, there is a stigma in social development that private sector is evil. So they are very kind of like distance themselves. Even one time I facilitate one NGO when I said, let's discuss about our strategic business, our strategic planning. One person raised her hand and says, we don't want to talk about strategy because strategy comes from business. Don't ask when I say, let's do the business process, and they will just shut off right away. So there's this stigma between social development towards business. And the public sector who always think that they are in charge. And that frustrates everyone. So if you are a facilitator, you need to know the dynamics. Once you know the dynamics, you manage the process. Then it's a dance.
Cindy?
Carm?
I would like to share an anecdote because the other year, 2019, and this year, I facilitated four already PPP. These PPP projects belong to one big program. So one PPP is on coconut, improving the incomes of farmers and introducing sustainable coconut farming, no, and also making it diverse. And cacao. So also same, improving the cacao farmers' income. And also diversifying. And I also facilitated the project planning for coffee, and the other crop was coffee, cacao. I forgot, but there are 4 crops in that one program. So 4 different kinds of organizations. So it's a public-private partnership. There's a foreign funder, a development organization, international, and then there's the private sector. So for coffee, I will not mention the name of the organization. I don't have to mention any organization and all this. What is really consistent, I observe, is that sometimes the project, in one of these experiences, the project is almost ending, and they have not defined together what increased farmer incomes mean. So I'll give you a concrete example. They are introducing standard, like fair trade, some of these standards, no, that they want the farmer to follow, so that they will have the label or the certification that they are whatever, sustainable coffee, whatever. And then in their project concept, it says that the farmer, at the end of the project, the income of the farmer should have increased by 20% or 10%, and then the productivity by 20%. That's in the project goal. Now, I facilitated the project planning this year, and the project is supposed to end in November. Jesus, in that facilitation, they discovered that the 2 of them have different definitions of farmer income. The development sector said, the development organization said, we already increased the income of our farmers. There are so many ways to increase it. And then the private sector said, well, our farmers, because they have their own farmers that they're assisting in the project, our farmers can only increase their income because they will get a 2 peso increase per kilo of this product by being certified. But none of their partners in this project have been certified. So the assumption of the private sector was increase in income can only come from certification. But the development organization said, we already achieved 10% increase. We did so many things. We introduced multi-cropping. We actually taught them in the farmer business school, money in, money out, how to reduce costs and all these things. Can you imagine the project is ending in November, but this is the only time they realized, oh my God, we have a different definition of farmer income. How can we achieve our target now? We will end in November. So this is a very concrete so that's why the lesson there was there are a lot of gray areas that project partners, project stakeholders have to really agree on, wherein the private sector just wants to squeeze the development project and that they will spend most of the money and not them. I've seen that dynamic not just once. So the development sector will present their budget, how the expenses are done, and then the private sector will not present their own share. So there are so many dynamics that can happen, and these are things that there's no time to discuss this now, but I'm just citing to you some examples, no, of concrete experiences when I'm actually facilitating and the issues just come out.
We actually we really resonate with that example, Carms, in our work with palm oil certification. The private sector and the public sector speak different languages. Oh yeah, and civil society, of course, are not even on the same planet. So I think there's a question here from our group. Jennifer, I'm going to hand over to her.
Hello, hi Cam, hi Victor. I work for I'm a civil servant. I work for the Sabah Art Gallery, State Gallery. I have a question. I was involved with a group on a 5-week intense sort of brainstorming for the creative industry for Sabah. And at the end of that, we came up with a 550-page long manual kind of thing, right? So yeah, exactly, Victor. That was my reaction too. So do you recommend keeping things simple and going for small aims rather than big things like that when it comes to getting results? Yeah, that's my question really, because I wonder how effective it is. Because do you have to control, or do you decide how many people should be involved? And because the size will determine how much you will come up with and how effective you will be really after that, right? Because if there's too many ideas, and maybe, as you said, Cam, 3 years later, 5 years later, you come back again and nothing has been achieved. And that has happened many times. We've had a 30-year plan that we discussed, and now I still don't see, after 5 years, anything in the 30-year plan that was discussed.
Can I share what I do? A lot of times people are just happy to share that they have ideas, not necessarily the right idea to share ideas. That's nice. Term plan, say 5 years or 10 years, you need to appoint the person in charge for every milestones. So you need to make sure at the end of the plan whether the end state is achieved. Is it through auditory work, audit work, or is it through review planning? You're talking about art. You're talking about, okay, is it performing arts on the one side? Maybe you're talking about paintings and sculptures in one. So you have all different areas. And when there's an intersection between performance or between activities, what might be the key roles? What might be the findings? And I will ask them to really work with the 3 months plan, action plan. I don't believe action plan more than 3 months. I'm sorry. I even sometimes says, can we have 1 month action plan? And when you say action plan, can we ask them to do 1, at the most 2? That definitely, it becomes too long. It becomes laundry list rather than a wish list. Yeah, so I don't need laundry list. I don't need wish list. I need action plan. So I my business sector side very much in that kind of concept. A lot of time people say, I want to be better. Let's put down action. When you say you want to take responsibility in taking care of the art gallery, what might be your action next month that will show that you are taking responsibility? For example, you're cleaning up the terrace in front of the gallery. You hire people to work in setting up the plank and systems at the backstage, for example. So very clear what is the action plan. 1 month, at the most 3 months. You have to be very clear who is in charge in evaluating the process of end state of each long-term plan. And you make them accountable. Make everybody sign or ask that person to sign, blood sign if need to. Make sure that they do. Even a minister. So I asked a minister to sign a planning. And he said, yeah, minister, we want to make sure everything is okay. And say, Pa, that's not an action plan. That's your job. I want you to write down what is your action plan next month with your busy schedule, with this kind of account, with this time amount of money that available for you for this project. What will you do? How much money that you have to spend for corruption that you have to take care of, and how much money you're sure that the percentage is enough to make sure the project is running. When I say that, his face is changing to blue, but that's reality. When you're a politician, you have to take money. Otherwise, you cannot be a politician. Tough luck.
Yeah, I think what Victor shared were very, very important points. Because I'm sorry, I did not get your name. The one who was
Jennifer.
asking the question, Jennifer. That's a very, very, very common situation again. That there's a lot, very big plan and nothing happens. One thing that I think makes this problematic, it's very sticky for me, is the movement of people. So it could be that the persons who were part of the plan, Jennifer, are so passionate about it when they made the plan. But then they are reassigned, or the minister is changed, or the manager has been transferred to another branch, or whatever. Somebody resigned. So the plan itself suffers, actually. And that's very common, no? As long as, because we always need champions. We always put out there as, my question really is, at what level of the organization do you have champions? Do you have champions at those who will implement it really, like the nitty-gritty, the dirt, to do the dirty job? Are there champions in the next hierarchy and up to the highest level in the stakeholders, not just in one stakeholder, the stakeholders who are involved? So for me, champion development, developing champions for whatever that is critical, who is very or recruitment of people and developing the champions is actually securing the funding. Because so many big, even in here in the Philippines, we have very nice laws. I mean, protecting the environment, water, resources, whatever. But then even the commission, which is supposed to see to it that like the National Commission on Solid Waste, for example, no, National Commission on Water Resources, the commission itself doesn't have enough funds to implement the big project. That's critical. And my last point, Jennifer, is really about understanding the context. Because in adaptive leadership, what I have learned from adaptive leadership is that we have to understand the characteristic of the context. If the problem is complex, it involves many stakeholders, the problem is quite difficult to solve, maybe you need a plan that you can adjust every few weeks or every few months, not a plan that is so big and people tend to forget about this plan. So I always think that in the spirit of adaptive leadership, you adapt as you go along, and change even the strategies or the tactics based on the information that comes in and based on the results that you get in each step of the way. So I'd rather that we first understand what's the characteristic of the context. Is this a simple context? Is this a complicated context? Is this a complex context, or is this a chaotic context? Like in a war zone, that's a very chaotic context. So understanding the context is important, so you know what sorts of plan you can develop, which might be easier to implement. Those are the 4 types I just mentioned. Maybe in the future, or maybe you've already had that, no?
Can you say them again? Chaotic.
Simple, complicated, complex, and chaotic. I will send to you the table, Cindy, later. So in this table, you will see the description of each and what is the leader's job and what are the danger signals in each of these different situations. Yes, Victor.
Sedap kayo makan, Victor. Sedap. You're muted.
Very, very nice. I always enjoy what I cook. Anyway, one time you will invite me to go to Sabah. Let me cook for you.
When are you coming?
Anyway, well, this is my proposal. Let me introduce you what we call connectivity within systems and I usually do when I facilitate this kind of situation. People ask me to
connectivity. What?
Connectivity between systems to scenario planning. Scenario planning.
Connectivity between systems.
Systems to connect to scenario plan. So what I do, So what I do with these organizations or gathering of people, when they want me to do the action or a planning workshop, I said, have you ever had beforehand? I asked the organizer, do you have already a systems work for you to make sure that whatever plan that you do will succeed? Otherwise, then the workshop is not designing the action plan, but designing a system. How design a system in process, the business process, the key decisions or papers that need to be done, policies that need to be done, infrastructure that allows everyone to make sure that things are done. So, if you need IT, if you have an office, whatever infrastructure you have. So let's build the system first. Once the system is set, agreed, and ready, then we create what we call scenario planning. So the second phase of it is scenario. Scenario planning includes if one person is shifting to another place and somebody else changing their posts or rearrange the post, what should we do? So you have all the scenario available. So whenever things happen, people can just go and work with that scenario. And I'm very much aware that sometimes it seems that there is no scenario. And I always say, let's choose co-facilitators or junior facilitators that can help you when there are scenario change. What should we do to reshape the changes, to refine the process, to align ourselves? Because then after that, after the scenario planning, the third plan that you need to do is alignment. You do a lot of alignment meeting. So people will start to really see it take shape, and then change happens. Otherwise, it's just beautiful on paper, but it won't happen.
So,
Did we answer the question?
did they answer your question, Jennifer? Yes. So
Thank you.
to my colleagues over here, when you hear them speak, does it sound sometimes like a different language? Because they're not in any way talking about any content, they're talking about process. And the language is all process languages. So in the last 20 to 30 minutes, Carms and Vic, can we talk about facilitative leadership? You mentioned the term, Vic, just now. I know you're writing about that. You probably have different articulations of the meaning. Do you want to talk about that?
I use the term facilitative leadership because I also, then because of the request, people asked me to write a book about it, and I'm in the middle of it. Facit comes from the basic term facilitative, which is facilitate, which is simple, easy. Leaders as a facilitative leadership means that he has this ability, leadership capability or ability to create everybody in the group easy to make decisions, easy to make change, easy to transform, easy to learn, easy, simple. And that you are so simple, it allows everybody in the group to interact, to come to you and discuss things, but it also allows everybody to come up with their ideas, not only asking for advice or not asking for decisions, but come up and say, hey, Sin, can I come to you? I think I want to do this. Can we discuss about it? And that, as leaders, Cynthia will say, okay, let's talk about it and see through and learn about it. And if we need to ask somebody else to come in and really discuss the whole thing before we make a decision. So that allows this kind of attitude rather than yes or no, rather than I want to do this way or that way. If I have an idea of what to do as leaders or where I want to bring this organization, I will not just impose it. I will involve everyone in the group and really understand and really gather the ideas and bring the awareness that this organization is yours, is not mine, it's all of us, it's ours. And it allows everybody to come and say, this might be the best solution for this company or organizations. So that's facilitative leadership. It has several elements that should be in that part of being a facilitative leaders. As facilitative leaders, you need to be neutral. That's one thing in that principle number one. It's very important. Be neutral. And when you're saying neutral, you also need to be mindful. That's neutrality, right? Mindful. That there are areas as a boss, you need to make a decision. You have to make a business decision. However difficult it is a business decision. But you are very mindful of doing it, not because of your personal preference or not because of like or resentment. It allows everybody in the organization to be engaged. Engage your team. The third is a combination of growth, knowledge, and abundance. Facilitative leaders allow knowledge to grow abundantly in the organization. So it brings the whole, like Carm always say, content and context. Facilitative leaders allow everybody in the group understand what is the content, what is the context, where's the process that can help this content and context worth for you. And so basically, that's the framework of facilitative leadership. Only three principles: being neutral, being
Mindful.
what you call mindful, neutral. Second is engage everybody. Third is growth knowledge abundant mentality, growth knowledge abundantly. So it's then you have a learning organization.
Be facilitative as managers or as leaders, um, you can learn very much from what we are doing. For example, because as facilitators, we some of us call it neutrality, but others call it multi-partial. You are partial to everybody, so multi-partiality, meaning if you in your work there in your organization, you have to meet so many stakeholders, right? And you might be the program manager. uh, if you are just listening to one stakeholder, that will be might be very dangerous. So it's important, if you have a facilitative attitude as a leader, as a manager, as a program manager, that you are multi partial. You're not just partial to one, but you are listening to the different perspectives of the different stakeholders that you are dealing with. So that goes even beyond neutrality, no? Because when you say you are multi-partial, you are understanding where they're coming from while not necessarily agreeing. So the objective is not to agree to all the stakeholders, but to be able to understand, why does this stakeholder in the reforestation project, the loggers, the middlemen who are buying the logs, the those who are providing the seedlings in the nursery, those who are protecting the forests, the forest guards, these are all different stakeholders. So a facilitative leader will be able to listen to these different stakeholder groups, and then to be able to understand where they're coming from. I feel for me that this is multi-partiality. I'm able to thing that I think is important for is really to be able to provide your stakeholders, including your employees, your staff, that you can create for creative thinking to flourish, for problem solving, for understanding between the different stakeholders or among the different stakeholders. What spaces are needed so that this group of people can give birth to a solution, can give birth to an idea. So it cannot always be the manager, the program manager, or the executive director of the NGO lecturing to the employees, you know? So what are the other spaces that have to be provided? Space and holding the space will be very important if you are a facilitative manager. Without providing spaces where there are processes that will enable these dialogues to happen, for example, there won't be an opportunities for stakeholders to be able to come together and discuss and dialogue, no, about important issues. So holding spaces for me is a very important skill for a manager if you want to be facilitative. The third thing that I think is very important is to be able to, I always have this in my facilitation skills training. We have this we have to be able to we have to be willing to remove our hat or to take your shoes off. As a manager, you should be willing to take off your managerial shoes every now and then. So toys, yeah, take off your shoes. Just remember that word. Okay, now I'm going to meet this and this and this and that stakeholder. We will have a staff meeting, but I don't want the staff to be intimidated by me, because they always think, that's Cynthia. Cynthia is the best. She has so many connections. She knows so many things. So as a manager, the challenge would be, when and how can I take off my shoes? So I want to take off my shoes and leave it outside so that all of us are barefoot and we can all discuss and learn together. So So it's very hard if the manager will always come with his or her best shoes into the meeting, and everybody will always be looking at it, right? Oh, shiny and the best. She will provide all the answers. So people
You have
are,
nice shoes.
zip, zip. The mouth is zip. They don't want to talk anymore. So take off your shoes, remove your hat every now and then, because that will prove very powerful. I'll stop there, Cindy.
Thank you. So for our last question, Carms, you asked for it. You mentioned holding space. So for people who don't facilitate for a living like the two of you, or have not trained in facilitation, this term holding the space, it's like space is space. How do you hold it? It's not tangible. What do you hold? What are you holding? Won't you look silly if you're just holding air? What does it mean? What does holding space mean to both of you?
Okay,
Carm, you want to start?
yeah, okay. I want to share with you that recently we had a very big family problem, but it's not that it's not solvable, but it's really big. So I was, I'm the youngest in the family, but somehow I have a leadership role. So I have to hold the space for my family, excluding the one whose problem we're trying to solve. So the rest of the family members have to meet. So how do I hold the space, right? Because people are angry. So what I did in the start is that we practiced stopping. So we did not do praying or meditation. We just practiced stopping. I just ask everybody to listen to our breath, you know, inhale, exhale, be aware of your environment, look at the plants, if there are plants around you, what you see. So part of holding the space was actually allowing the people to stop, to be more aware of the transforming power of their own breath. So by stopping, we're letting people be in touch first with with the core self. So for me, part of holding space is leading people to their core self. So the actual thing that I did was the practice of stopping. So it was a 10-minute or 5-minute stopping. So that's very concrete, no? Already of how to hold space. So I was actually preparing the people for the eventual dialogue on a very important, quite difficult problem. And for me, aside from having all those pause or stops, holding space is actually enabling people to be their best self. Enabling people to be their best self in a dialogue, in a planning, in a meeting, learning exchange. Because if we will not enable people to be their best self, we are setting ourselves up for failure. That's why for me, the process designing is very important. Understanding the context is very important. So whatever processes you bring into the event, whether it's it's a learning exchange, a dialogue, a simple meeting in your office, I mean, what can you do to enable people to be their best selves, no? So will you provide information in advance, no? Will you see to it that everybody is free at that time and they are not pressured, they don't have pressure so much on the time that you selected, no, for people to meet? Is the venue good enough for this kind of discussion? Not even good enough. Is it the best that you could find given the circumstances? So it's really important that the things that we put into our design is really enabling people to be their best self. I mean, I can't emphasize that enough, but there are so many ways to do that. Uh, Sometimes we don't know where people are coming from, but I think if you can get the information, so much the better, so that you can design the processes that allows people to come and just be their best self, no, and give what they could give to the endeavor. Those are my two thoughts for now. The stopping, the importance of stopping or pausing, and then to design processes that enable people to become their best self. I think those are two guiding principles for holding the space where people are willing to come forward and to really share and be there and be present. Vic?
Cynthia, how many people there?
28.
28. Can you ask all the 28 or 29 of you to hold your breath, please? Stop breathing.
Hold your breath.
Count. Yeah, and count. Somebody should count.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
You
9,
need
10.
to breathe. You
Oh, you mean hold your breath or breathe in and out?
yeah, hold your breath. Really hold your breath. Don't breathe. And if you cannot breathe anymore, you need your air, you raise your hand, okay? And then you say 1, 2, 3. Count how many, until what number is people can hold their breath.
13,
Woo,
14,
amazing.
15,
Everybody still hold their breath until 15. All right, 16.
18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25.
Okay,
Everyone.
that's enough. All right, so you have between 16 until 25, which is amazing. Now, how do you feel when you're asked to hold your breath? What happened when you have to hold your breath 1 to 10, and then 10 to 6, or 16, or 10 to 20? The difference.
They say I cannot think. I just focus on the breathing or not breathing. More? Listening to the number.
Okay.
Time slows down. Okay, 11 onwards was just thinking about holding the breath.
And struggling about it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, that is holding our breath, right? When we are talking about breath. Now, think about it. Are we providing air to everyone in the group? Are we providing air for everyone to share their ideas? Are we providing air for everyone to come up with ideas or even challenge each other and learn from it? And are we giving air for differences? Are we giving air? What happened if the air is not there? What happened if the air is hold? Maybe at the beginning you can stand it, 1 to 10, but afterwards, 10 to 6, 10 to 25, you start actually struggling. And then you focus yourself to the numbers, to the counting, because you try to stay holding your air. Now, giving space is like giving air. How do we give air, give space for people? Otherwise, people are suffocated. Otherwise, people are suffocated not to be able to talk. They are suffocated not to be able to express their mind. They are suffocated because they are not growing. So when we are giving space for people, actually we are giving space for them to grow, for them to breathe, for them to express their mind, to give their ideas and concepts, whatever. So that's what I say. We are giving space. We're giving air to everyone.
Sorry, it's me again. Years ago, I read about
Yes.
a technique. Yeah, a technique that people use in meetings where it's called 6 thinking hats. I don't know if you've heard.
Oh, Bono.
If you guys have heard of,
Yes,
heard of
Edward
that?
de Bono.
Yes, that's right. It's about
Yep, Edward.
obviously. So it's like everyone's looking at an elephant, and usually everyone's looking at the elephant from different sides. That's what it's saying. So the 6 thinking hats is that. Well, sorry, I'm just telling everyone briefly. So basically, you just change hats because, like, a white hat would mean everyone just talk about the positive thing about something. A black hat is all the negative things, right? So that was one method. What do you guys think about that?
What I think, or whether it is a good idea, or what is the
Yeah.
question?
Yes. What do you think of it? Do you think it is a good idea?
I think it's good. If you think it is good. Well, this is the thing. Um, there are so many tools and techniques. One good technique is Edward de Bono's six thinking hats. It allows people to be structured in their way of meetings, in their way of thinking. And but if you're used to it, sometimes you just ignore whether it's white, black, or red, whatever, because otherwise you confuse what is red, what is white, and people are start thinking about the colors instead of the thinking. What is important is for us to give a place for, because you're a process manager, then you, in your design, in your meetings, or when you're having a discussion with a friend, you give a place for every way of thinking. You're thinking as a idea sharing, or you're thinking as a conflict managing, or whatever. But that allows you to set enough time or enough role for everyone to play in that role. It's a good techniques. It's a great metaphor using hats. In practice, you just mix them up. Once you practice it, you don't care the color, because after all, it's all hats.
Yeah, thank you.
So I have used the six thinking hats in my processes. So I actually prepared cards with the six thinking hats. What is it about, etc. And each participant, I give them the six cards. And I also have a real hat, a red hat, blue hat. So sometimes I bring that to the events, and then each participant gets the six cards to remind them what the white hat is, the red hat, like that. And these are laminated cards so that I can use them until whenever. Um, the value maybe of using the six thinking hats is that participants, number one, will not be afraid if somebody uses the black hat, for example, because black hat thinking is the one which is like the devil's advocate, always asking for, this might be difficult, this might have potential problems. So it makes the people not afraid that it's okay to wear a black hat, or it's okay to listen to feelings. So that's your red hat, the feelings, the hunches, the intuition. So for me, that's the value, no? That people start to accept the different ways of thinking, and that if some people are too black hat thinking, always being devil's advocate, shutting down ideas, may saying it might be bad and all these things. There are also other people who can be green hat thinking or creative, looking at the positive side, yellow hat of some ideas. So I find it very helpful if you use that. Also, and also for yourself, if you are a black hat thinker, you're always on the negative about so many things. Once you know it, your participant knows it, he will also be self-aware in that he or she can start to think, oh, I can try the green hat. Look for alternative new ideas instead of always thinking negatively about the ideas. Or I can look at the benefits or the value of this idea, like a yellow hat, or I need more data. That's your white hat. So it increases self-awareness of what your tendency is, and then maybe it can help the person shift also. So it depends how you use it, in what context, but I have used it, and I think it's helpful when people know it also. Mm-mm.
Okay, we're at 5:37, 4:37 for Victor. You have any final things you want to share to aspiring facilitators and facilitative leaders?
Carm, go ahead. I'll do the last as usual.
Okay. I want to know how many of you wants to be facilitators or are already facilitators, are excited to be facilitators. How many of you are, you know, all are all of you doing the job already, or this it could be a vocation.
Oh.
So there five five are already doing this.
No, quite a lot of hands are up. Different. They say they're at different levels.
Okay, okay. And may I hear from at least two of them how they find this challenge? I mean this role. Can I hear from two? Like, are they happy to be a facilitator? Is it fulfilling for them?
Hi, Camila. This is Neville. Just
Hi.
just want to get your opinion on, facilitators with interest, or facilitators who have dived so deep with the issues, and how can they? I really love it when you talk about multi-partial, being multi-partial. It's something beyond neutral, but is it our job as facilitators to encourage people in the room to be multi-partial with each other?
Okay. So, if you are very deep into the issue, I my first gut reaction is don't facilitate, because if you're so passionate about an issue and you cannot detach from it, it's so hard. If you have an agenda yourself, you're pushing, you're an advocate, you're a staunch advocate for reforestation, and the topic is massive deforestation in Sabah, for example, that will be really, really a challenge. So my first instinct will be to say, why don't you hire an external or third party facilitator, or somebody in the group who is not so invested, or not doesn't have a lot of stakes, or is not a staunch advocate on this topic, because it is really, really, really tricky to be in that position. Now, if you are in a group where all of you are have an agenda, all of you are advocates, for example, have your own advocacies, and you don't have the money to hire an external facilitator, you don't have time to hire an external facilitator, I think it's best to choose somebody who can set aside his or her views and is willing to be the last always to give his or her opinion. Because if you want to be always the first to give your opinion, you already violate the first rule in facilitation. Give others the space to speak, not you, because the facilitator is a midwife giving birth to ideas, right? So it will not be good if you are so interested in the topic, you're fighting for it, for justice, whatever, and you throw a question, a reflection question, and then you will say, okay, I'll be the first to share. That's a big no-no when you are facilitating. So the way to handle it is, number one, you should be the last to answer. Number two, if you have to give an opinion on something, then you also tell them, I want to shift to my hat as a participant. So it helps when you are the facilitator and the group agreed that you will facilitate, even if you are so into the topic, then it's nice. May I shift to my other role as participant? This is my view about this matter. No? When participants are given the cue that you are shifting your role, then they are better prepared. Rather than you are facilitating, pretending to be facilitating, and then suddenly you will say, actually, I don't agree with that. You know? then you lose your facilitator's hat, right?
Yeah.
So when you are in my facilitation skills training, this is actually a role play, multiple hats role play. So what will you do, especially in the NGO, in the civil society, the small civil society? Usually you are the facilitator, you are the program manager, you are the resource person, you are the documenter, and you are the secretariat, because the project doesn't have a lot of funds. You are performing all those 5 roles. My God, and then number 6, you have to disburse. You have to disburse their transportation, their food allowance. that's the reality of NGO work. Now, how do you balance all of this, right? So then you become so stressed on the disbursement because somebody was cheating and making it double the motorbike fee there. So you're so stressed, and then you have to facilitate, right? So then you need a lot of breathing in and breathing out because nobody can take your place as facilitator. I know it because I work with the NGO community and I come from the NGO sector. I know the challenges of multiple hats. So I cannot tell you like do this when you're already in that situation, but don't forget to breathe in and breathe out. And then it really helps when you are also upfront and honest to the participants that you know that this is my position. I lay it out there. Uh, and then, but now I'm the facilitator, so I'll try my best to fulfill the facilitator's role. And I will just inform you when I want to speak out my mind about the matter. So it's better also to be, and the last thing I want to say about that, if there is a strong opposition for you to become facilitator, then don't. Because the worst facilitator is when there are people among the participants who oppose you as being facilitator because they perceive you as already biased, no? And that will be really, really a challenge. So those are just a few things. There are other things we can discuss, but I think those few things are already quite heavy on your plate.
Okay. Hello, Camila and Victor. This is Yogi. Um, I am also doing kind of a facilitation because of the community work that I do. Sometimes I do translation between the indigenous group. One of the most difficult tasks I think that I face is the getting people to talk actually. So getting them to express the opinion without imposing like everybody speaks or give one idea, things like that. So it's like it's not the open sessions that normally we require or can have in the different group where officers are, where they actually speaks but they actually don't mean it. So there's a very contrast, yeah, in the community where they feel the issue, they actually don't express. So it's very difficult actually to proceed. Whereas in the different level, they actually uh, say a lot of things, but at the end of the day, they don't have any commitment. So there was a lot of sharing just now that I heard, where we are also have to be a good listener and also able to take keywords and synthesize. So I think I don't know. I was just wondering, um, what are the principles or tools, probably, or the length of time, or what do you need when you facilitate in different groups of people, especially the more grassroots level? Thank you.
Can I just jump in here? Usually it's easier for people to talk in smaller group rather than in front of everyone. It's not so easy for everybody to talk in public. So what I usually do is, when you say how long will it take, it depends on the dynamic of the meeting. There is no rule of thumbs on this 10 minutes is enough or 15 minutes is enough. When the problem is very difficult, usually it requires more time and more dynamic. So it's not only one model of small group discussions. You can use World Cafe, you can use open space, you can use simple groupings, different methods. But let them talk in smaller group and ask somebody from that smaller group to tap, either using map or write down on the flip chart and tap the ideas that this person is sharing. Once it is written, and then they can see whether it is right or not, then validate the keywords. Then it's easy also to bring back paper or map into the assembly. And as facilitators, you can also start to really work through the process of combining and synthesizing all these different maps. The other way of doing that is also allowing people to walk around the presentations of everyone. So it doesn't have to be presentation, should not be a presentation. I call it presentation without presentation, where people are just walking through all different presentations and give them post-its to write down what are the ideas that they can add on into the presentations of their colleagues. Sometimes it is easier for them to write down or draw or symbol, whatever, to the ideas, very specific ideas. So there are a lot of techniques, a lot of methods that can be used for this kind of situation. One of the methods you can do is invite me to come and I'll help you.
You will be here, both of you. So last few minutes to wrap up. You want to say a couple of last words, both of you?
Carm, go ahead.
Yeah, just to respond to the last question, I think the question of the facilitator is really about voice. Voice, that we are giving voice, diba? Giving space for voices to be heard, to be listened to. So since voice is very important, our understanding of voice is always like the verbal voice. But actually, look at the protests now in Myanmar. I appreciate the protests in Myanmar. The way they speak their protest, wearing the doctor's costume, wearing Disneyland long gowns and all these things, because that is still voice. So when you think of facilitation as how can I make this voice heard? It can be in many different methods. So the question of how can I let the indigenous people speak, they're so quiet and all these things. Now think of those different methodologies where voice can still be heard. So by drawing, using sticks and stones and leaves, by role play, community theater, by readers theater. I do a lot of readers theater in some of my workshops. I have a story and I give them a role, and then they read it with expression about the bird and the whatever story on conflict, So voice can be manifested in different ways or expressed in different ways. So don't think of voice. This will be my last word. Don't think of voice as just the verbal, the one that you hear. There are many ways to make that voice come out. And therefore, that's where the creativity will come in of the facilitator. Vic?
Yeah, my my last word is welcome. I welcome you to a journey of learners. It's a lifelong journey. It's a beautiful place to go around. You will meet and talk with different issues and different people and different model. You'll learn every time that it's just endless. And it's just so fun to really see how we if we reflect ourselves, how we see ourselves grow. And it allows us to be a person that is available for everyone, available for people around you, available for even to yourself. Because we practice space also for ourselves. We practice self also for people around us. So it's welcome. So that's one of the things I will enjoy seeing. The next time I meet you all, I will see a very different vibes because I see so many people are going through the journey.
Thank you so
Yay,
much.
Welcome, everybody.
Can we see? Can we stand up, give them a big hand, give them some love?
I will also stand up. Woo.
So, can you see them? Can you see everybody?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, it's so
Yay!
nice to
Woohoo!
see. Yay.
Thank you so much,
Beautiful.
both of you. We hope that the next time we see both of you together will be in Sabah, and we can do a deeper dive into facilitation and some training. Yes? Do I hear a
Okay.
yes from both of you?
Yes, agree.
Yeah.
Or you can do it in Jogja.
or
We
in
can do
Bali.
it in the Philippines, in some beach here in Palawan.
Show them the view.
Wow, amazing. Wow. Wow.
Can you see the
Woo.
top? Can you see the top of the mountain? There, the
Yeah, with
Yes.
the clouds and the clouds. Oh my gulay. Oh my gulay. Gulay is vegetable here. Oh my gulay. Oh.
Nice.
Okay,
Nice.
lots of
Wonderful.
love to both of you.
Bye.
Thank you so much for
Thank
spending
you,
your time with us.
everybody.